See, every game has conference or BCS implications. Yes, even Virginia Tech, Boston College. The Hokies still have a shot to get to Charlotte. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll make it all make sense.
Okay, good.
I think the BCS and how we go with all these computers and all this stuff, I think we're winning.
Jimbo goes off after the Noles get no BCS respect. Was he right to take some shots at the system?
Mean touchdown throwing machine tonight, and he's got another one.
It's time for Tajh Boyd to get some serious Heisman attention. So why isn't he?
To the end zone. Caught! Touchdown, Jake McGee! The kid does it again!
Miami's last-second loss last week created even more coastal chaos. With just 2 weeks left, the division is a mess. We clean it up on ACC Kickoff Live.
Over to the 10, at the 5. Touchdown!
Welcome to ACC Kickoff Live. It is a great day for ACC football. I'm Jeff Fischel with two ACC greats, Dorsey Levens and Riley Skinner. Today's the day it all comes into focus, unless it doesn't. The Coastal, Dorsey, still confusing, to say the least.
Yeah, very confusing, the Coastal. I mean, UNC is out. Miami may be out. Go to Atlanta today. Very big game between Duke and Georgia Tech. Should clear some of this stuff up by the end of the day.
Riley, the Atlantic makes more sense.
It does. It's pretty much locked up by Florida State. Granted, they have to beat Maryland today, but Maryland's a depleted team that I don't think Florida State should have any problem with. But Florida State, what they need to do today, impress the BCS better to get some style points, but also second half, keep those guys healthy because Florida next week could be pretty big.
You talked about Florida State and the BCS. We have got to get right to what Jimbo Fisher said this week. The Florida State coach blasting the system. Jimbo's upset the Noles are 10th in the BCS behind six SEC teams. And in one of the computer polls, which play a big role in the BCS rankings, Florida State is ranked behind a Vanderbilt team that's 6-4 and a 5-5 Missouri team. Fisher is furious.
I think it stinks. I think the BCS and how we go with all these computers and all this stuff, I think we're ruining it. Because I'm going to tell you what, the playoff in which we have right now, they ain't going to solve it either. What's the playoff going to solve? They got to change how we pick the top teams in this country. You got to change it. That's not working.
In the BCS, Florida State is 10th, Clemson 11th. Dorsey, do you agree with Jimbo or the rankings?
I agree with Jimbo. I mean, it has to change. It's absolutely ridiculous right now for a Vanderbilt team or a Missouri team to be ranked ahead of Florida State. And then the SEC, while the SEC is the strongest conference in the country, there's no doubt about that, to have three teams with 2 losses ranked ahead of them, I don't agree with either. I think at some point in time, like you talked about the eye test, we need to go with the eye test and not so much computer reliance.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it stinks what Jimbo Fisher said, but what Dorsey talked about the eye test, it's becoming more of who you play, not how you play. And you look at where the coaches are ranking these teams. These coaches, they're the ones that get paid. They're the knowledgeable ones that know what good football is. And Florida State's number 6 in these rankings. And I just hate that they're subject to their conference and things that they can't control. All they can control is how you play. But right now, how you play is not having much to do with where you're getting ranked. It's just the computers and who else is in your conference.
You mentioned the coaches poll. Jimbo votes in the coaches poll. He has the Noles 4th behind Kansas State, Oregon, and Notre Dame, the undefeated teams. And even if those schools lose in the next couple of weeks, it's become very clear that Florida State will not get a shot at the national title. Let's get to Kelly Nash. Kelly, ACC Commissioner John Swofford talking about the future of the BCS as well. What did he say?
That's right. Commissioner Swofford had a few comments to make after coming out of this week's meetings regarding playoff systems and ironing out some more details. Now, in those meetings, they've decided that 4-team playoff is a lock. That is a done deal. It is going to be just 4 teams. They've also agreed to create 3 contract bowls and 3 host bowls. But more importantly, they've unanimously agreed to share revenue. Now, here's what Commissioner Swofford had to say coming out of those meetings. We've reconfirmed the 4-team seeded playoff in a way that maintains college football as the strongest regular season in sports and upholds the tradition of the bowl system. This entire approach is proving to be beneficial for both college football and for the ACC. Now, part of those so-called contract bowls is, of course, the Orange Bowl. The ACC and the Orange Bowl have agreed to a new 12-year deal. It will pit the ACC champion against a team from the SEC, Big Ten, and Notre Notre Dame. Now, Orange Bowl has also agreed to a 12-year deal with ESPN, so we will continue to watch those games on the network. So, guys, we could potentially see Dorsey's two teams, Notre Dame and Georgia Tech, facing off in the Orange Bowl, although the Irish are only allowed to play in the Orange Bowl twice in this new 12-year deal.
But Kelly, thank you. But at some point, we could see a Dorsey Bowl, Georgia Tech and Notre Dame going at it.
Yeah, it would be great. I think we'll call it the Golden Bowl. I think that's
You've got to be the honorary coin flip guy.
Oh, I have to be.
Absolutely.
I have to be. Too bad for Notre Dame, though, that they can only play in the Orange Bowl twice in 12 years, which means that Georgia Tech can only beat them twice.
I see where the Lions stand.
So what do you think of the BCS rankings of the new playoffs? What would make college football's postseason even better? Tweet us at the ACCDN. These guys will offer up their solutions for college football's postseason coming up later. All right, let's get right into the Saturday menu brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Florida State against Maryland.
I think Florida State, all they got to do is show up to this game. They should be able to get a W, but that's not all they need to do. They've got to get style points, have a dominating performance, and Sean Petty, quarterback for Maryland, former linebacker, good luck against this Florida State D.
Virginia Tech, Boston College.
It's crazy, but Virginia Tech still has an outside shot at this crazy Coastal Division. Boston College looks to put the nail in the coffin on Virginia Tech's up-and-down season.
An out-of-conference game for the Miami Hurricanes taking on South Florida.
We got a little bragging rights here. The South Florida bragging rights, you know these guys are all recruited by the same coaches, but for Miami, they need to fine-tune this defense, get ready for their big game against Duke. Has a lot of coastal implications, but it's a fine-tuned game for them.
NC State, Clemson.
This game will be won on third down. Clemson's third in the BCS and converting on third down. NC State is third and stopping third down conversions.
And in South Bend, Wake Forest taking on Notre Dame.
Can they play BCS Buster? I don't know, but if they have a shot, it's going to have to come down to Tanner Price and Michael Campanaro and the receiver and quarterback tandem. They've got to get something going early and often because the secondary is the softest part of this very good Notre Dame defense.
Then the Coastal game, the big one, Georgia Tech, Duke.
Georgia Tech put up 68 points last week against a UNC team coming off a bye week. Duke comes off a bye week this week as well. They've given up over 100 points in the last two games.
It is certainly hard to believe Georgia Tech is playing for the Coastal title. The Yellow Jackets started the season with a heartbreaking loss to Virginia Tech. Tevin Washington, remember, intercepted in overtime after the Yellow Jacket defense could not protect a last-minute lead. Then, in late September, they started on a 3-game losing streak, blowing a big lead to Miami, getting shocked then by Middle Tennessee. Then, Clemson put up 47 on them. It cost Al Groh his job as defensive coordinator and left the Yellow Jackets 1-3 in the ACC, and it seemed out of the race. But now, the Yellow Jackets have won 3 straight conference games. A win today, and they could go from 2-4 and lost in the abyss to Coastal champs. Linebacker Jeremiah Tauchu says this team always believed.
We just kept the same energy level. We tried to maintain. We didn't want to lose morale, so we were trying to be very positive. During the whole losing the coach, to changes and things like that. We try to always remain consistent with our energy level, our being positive. Just smiling, being happy, and keeping things normal, not really being down. Or because we knew what type of team we were. We struggled early. We know we're a good team. So we just kept believing in ourselves. And we're playing every week to play for we're playing for a championship. Basically, it's like a playoff. So we're going out every week trying to win. So we're not really worried about things that we can't control. And if they do fall in place, we'll run with it.
Dorsey, I've watched you twist and turn sitting here watching Georgia Tech games week after week. Are you disappointed this team is 5-5, or are you impressed with how they've handled adversity?
A little bit of both. I am disappointed that they're at 500 at this point in time, but they have overcome a lot of adversity. I thought when they were 2-4, that's a pretty good time to close up shop and kind of cash it in for the rest of the season. But they kept fighting, and in this unpredictable season we call college football, anything it can happen. So now they're in the Coastal race. So hats off to them for staying focused and staying ready to play, because they had a lot of chances to really quit because the season was over early in the season.
Can we get a Dorsey cam in the studio during the Georgia Tech games? That would make really good TV. Probably have to be on HBO or Showtime, just some of the anger and the language that come out, but that'd be good TV.
Riley, what's changed about this team over this past few weeks?
I think the last couple of weeks we've seen the impact that Vad Lee has had on this offense. He in my opinion, has a much better throwing arm than Tevin Washington. It's hard to bench Tevin Washington because he's a senior. He's breaking ACC records. But when Vadli comes in the game, he provides a huge spark, especially against UNC. He threw for almost 170 and a touch. Also ran for over 100 and 2 touches. And he just kind of has a new dynamic to what this offense brings. And like you said, when he can throw the football, they're a much better offensive football team.
Yeah, the biggest difference is definitely in the passing game. He brings that element to the football team. Where, and I said all along, their run game is so effective that they can sprinkle in a passing game here and there. They're going to be impossible to stop, and I think that's what we saw last week. Bad lead threw the football effectively, and North Carolina had no answer because the running game is going to be almost impossible to stop anyway. Yeah. And if you can get that passing game going, woo.
And now that's what Duke has to worry about today, right?
Oh, absolutely. And like we talked about earlier, they've given up over 100 points. So, I mean, albeit to a good Florida State offense, they still, they got the work cut out for them.
I think if Duke's going to have a chance to win this game, they're going to have to score 40 points because Georgia Tech's going to get theirs.
This game is so big, but there are so many different ways the Coastal could shake out. I'll break down every possibility later in the show.
Notre Dame goes to 10-0 for the first time since 1993.
For the second straight week, the ACC gets a shot at upsetting Notre Dame and ending Irish hopes of a national title. BC couldn't do it. Wake, you're up.
If it was somebody else, I think I was picked first.
Corey Fuller talks about his days on the playground going against his brother and Virginia Tech teammate Kyle. What they want to do with their Hokie brethren to finish the season strong.
And Tajh Boyd with another touchdown pass, his 5th of the night.
Tajh Boyd keeps putting up numbers. Are Heisman voters finally taking notice?
What do you call a machine that combines precision-engineered handling, industry-leading power, and a rider-focused design? We call it a Can-Am. From the essentials to fully loaded, you'll find that same combination in every ATV and side-by-side rebuild. And right now, get your own for as low as $149 a month. Can-Am, the ride says it all.
I'm Jeff Fischel with another ACC Now and Then, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Miami's Duke Johnson had over 300 all-purpose yards versus Virginia, including a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown and 150 yards on the ground, putting him on pace to break the Hurricanes' freshman rushing record held by one of the all-time greats at Miami, Clinton Portis, who racked up 838 yards in 1999.
Brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Enjoy our new mixed grill special starting at $11.99.
At the Jeep Summer Clearance event, you can make this summer your time. Time to find your power and lose your doubts. Time to steer clear of the ordinary and make room for the extraordinary. Just like the deals you'll find at the Jeep Summer Clearance event.
You can't keep greatness in a box, so we won't. The ACC mobile app presented by Carrabba's. Imagine seeing this on this. That's greatness. For the ACC schools you live for, it's the app you can't live without. Available on your iPhone, iPad, Android, and Nokia Lumia Windows Phone. The ACC mobile app, live games, video, scores, stats, news, and greatness. Visit theacc.com/apps.
Why not try someplace different every morning? Get 2 times the points on dining in restaurants with J Sapphire Preferred.
This might be a reason why Notre Dame is excited to be coming to the ACC. The Irish usually win. In the past 2 seasons, Notre Dame is 5-1 against ACC schools. The lone loss to Florida State you see there in the Champs Sports Bowl last December. The Irish looking to go to 6-1 today against Wake Forest. When Notre Dame joins the conference, it will play 5 games every year against ACC schools. And it's back-to-back ACC games for the Irish. BC last week, Wake today. Dorsey, this Notre Dame team, so physical on both sides of the ball. Can the Demon Deacons handle that?
It's going to be tough for them to handle it, especially on defense, where defensively Notre Dame is led by Manti Te'o, their outstanding linebacker. He's got 90 tackles this year, 2 tackles for loss, and 6 interceptions. I mean, he's all over the place. He's a tackling machine, and most importantly, he gets turnovers. And defense wins championships. Offensively, usually 2 quarterback systems don't work, Riley, right? But this time around, it's working pretty well with Everett Golson and Tommy Rees. Both of these guys are moving the offense up and down the field. Obviously, Rees is the closer when the game is on the line. down, in crunch time, and they got 2 good running backs that run the ball well as well. So it's going to be tough for your Demon Deacons to combat that.
It is. I mean, the 2 quarterbacks are playing well, but again, I don't think the offense is what's winning them a lot of games. Like you said, it's their defense that they're relying on, and they've shown some vulnerability. I think if Wake had the chance to do so, I mean, like BC kept it a game for 3 quarters last week, and if Michael Campanaro and Tanner Price get in connection and they get into a rhythm, they need to get quick hitting throws to Michael Campanaro so Tanner Price doesn't have to sit back in the pocket and let that Notre Dame rush defense get after him. But Michael Campanaro and outside receiver number 81, Terrence Davis, those 2 guys have got to be a huge key to this offense if they're going to have a chance to win. And Coach Steve Lebowski, offensive coordinator, he loves to throw in some trickery. I think we're going to see a couple trick plays today to try to get them off their heels.
Notre Dame, number 3 in the BCS. The Demon Deacons still need one more win to be bowl eligible. They have the Fighting Irish today, Vanderbilt next week. Here's how the entire Atlantic Division looks. Florida State wins the division if it beats Maryland today. Clemson still has BCS hopes as well, but it must beat NC State today. That means stopping the Tigers' explosive spread offense. Dorsey, great stuff from EA Sports right now, helping us see what Clemson does so well.
Yeah, let's take a look at this clip right here in the video. As you see, their spread offense, 4 wide receivers, 1 running back. They're going to kind of spread you out and use their speed and ability. What they do a lot is they hit you with double moves. You see the quarterback is going to look to the right to get the attention of the cornerback on the right-hand side. So what happens? Out and up, the cornerback bites on the out, and the wide receiver goes upfield, breaks a tackle, which Clemson does so well, getting lots of yards after the catch, scoring touchdowns. But this is what they do. They spread the ball and they confuse you a little bit. If you jump on that first move, it could be trouble. You could be chasing a wide receiver down the field from 70 yards.
That's what they get air in people's defenses, and it creates all those guys need. Samuel Hawkins, DeAndre Hopkins is 1 step. And I'll say if NC State beat them last year. I don't think Clemson's going to be looking towards South Carolina, but if NC State gets off to a slow start like they've shown they do on the first and second quarter in a couple of games this year, it could be game over in the second quarter for the Wolfpack. And right now, Tajh Boyd, my man, hasn't played a full game in the last 2 weeks against Duke and Wake Forest. So NC State has got to start out fast. They're going to have a chance. I think Clemson just puts up way too many points.
You talked about those slow starts. I mean, 22-7 down to Tennessee after 1 quarter, 23-7 down to Miami after 1 quarter, down 25-7 to North Carolina in the first quarter, 26-0 before they finally scored 2 weeks ago against Virginia. That has been NC State's Achilles heel all season long.
And also, I don't think you're going to see Clemson let up at all if they get an early lead like that, because they need style points, just like Florida State does for these BCS voters. They need style points for their team. I think you're going to see Dabo keep his foot on the gas, and it's going to be a highlight.
So not looking past NC State to think about South Carolina next week.
No, absolutely not. I think NC State beating Florida State has everybody on alert now, so they're not going to overlook them. And this is a different Clemson team. We talk about Tajh Boyd being their leader, and this is not the same old Clemson team that's going to fold down the stretch. They've been playing extremely well at the end of the season.
They're focused. They're not looking past.
All right, we'll talk about the ACC versus the SEC all next week here on the ACC Digital Network. Coming up, Virginia Tech Hokie sits down to talk with us about how the team is handling a 4-6 season. Frank Beamer hasn't been through a season like this in a long time. Plus, look at the Coastal. You can't keep greatness in a box, so we won't. The ACC mobile app presented by Carrabba's. Imagine seeing this on this. That's greatness. For the ACC schools you live for, it's the app you can't live without. Available on your iPhone, iPad, Android, and Nokia Lumia Windows Phone. The ACC mobile app, live games, video, scores, stats, news, and greatness. Visit theacc.com/apps. I'm Jeff Fischel with another ACC Now and Then, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Miami's Duke Johnson had over 300 all-purpose yards versus Virginia, including a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown and 150 yards on the ground, putting him on pace to break the Hurricanes' freshman rushing record held by one of the all-time greats at Miami, Clinton Portis, who racked up 838 yards in 1999.
Brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Enjoy our new mixed grill special starting at $11.99.
At the Jeep Summer Clearance event, you can make this summer your time. Time to find your power and lose your doubts. Time to steer clear of the ordinary and make room for the extraordinary. Just like the deals you'll find at the Jeep Summer Clearance event.
The ACC Digital Network, the ultimate video destination for ACC fans. Exclusive highlights, live streaming games, and original live programming, unique access to the student athletes of our time and the legendary voices of all time. Defining moments, personal stories, incredible analysis from authentic ACC sources, cutting-edge content from the leaders in the digital space. The ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.
Experience unique culinary pairings with Ruby Tuesday's new mixed grill specials starting at $11.99, including our baby back ribs and bacon wrapped shrimp. And of course, enjoy our free garden bar with any mixed grill special or chef-inspired entree. Ruby Tuesday, it's all good here.
It's very simple math for Virginia Tech. The Hokies must win today against Boston College and win next week versus Virginia. It's the only way the Hokies can get to a bowl game. Today in Chestnut Hill, this one is on the ACC network. The Hokies lead the all-time series 14-6. But the Eagles may have one big advantage today. Virginia Tech is 0-4 on the road. The Hokies score 11 points fewer on the road than they do at home, and the defense giving up 38 a game on the road. We spoke to Hokies wide receiver Corey Fuller on Wednesday for our ACC Google Hangout. He says playing their big rival Virginia next week for a spot in a bowl game would still be a huge deal.
Some people already consider our season somewhat of a bust. But then there's others who's going around keeping confidence, high hopes, everything else like that. Like I said earlier, our backs are against the walls, and we just have to come out, give everything we have, and we can still, make a bowl game.
Jumping ahead a couple weeks to the Virginia game, Corey, you've experienced this rivalry. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Because it might actually come down to that game for you guys to be bowl eligible.
Oh, yeah. One of my teammates were telling me, if Virginia wins this weekend and we win this weekend, we'll both be 5-6, and going into that game, whoever wins make it to the bowl game and as well wins the Commonwealth Cup. That would be a game to play. Just everything is on the line for that last game. I remember when Vinny played Virginia, how hyped up or he would be before the game started, and that would be something to play for.
There's no doubt the Fuller family fits into Virginia Tech. Kyle and Vincent also Hokies. Corey, talk about being a Virginia Tech family.
It's great. It feels like everybody is aware of who we are, how close we are. My parents, they love it. They're actually coming down for Thanksgiving. It's like we spent like this is our home now, and it's been wonderful.
It was great talking to Corey Fuller. This is ACC Kickoff Live. I'm Jeff Fischel with Dorsey, Levens, and Riley Skinner. Guys, we know Virginia Tech will not get to 10 wins this season. What's happened? What's gone wrong with this team, Dorsey?
So many things have gone wrong for this team. I'm going to focus on the offense and Logan Thomas. Coming into this season, the expectation level was through the roof because of the season he had last year. This year hasn't quite lived up to the hype. 14 touchdowns to go with 14 interceptions, but it's not completely his fault. You look around, it all starts with the offensive line. We know the issues they've had there with injuries, staying healthy, trying to protect him back there in the pocket. And then the running game hasn't been that well either. I mean, you combine those things, the running game and a lack of offensive line production, then you see Logan Thomas struggling. So
I'm going to go to the flip side. I'm going to go to the defense. I think this is by far the biggest surprise and the biggest issue that the Hokies are facing. This is a team that returned 9 starters, one of the nation's top defenses, and they are just not getting it done. And it's really, I don't want to say effort, but they're not bringing people down. They're missing tackles. They're out of formations. It's just inexcusable things that you don't normally see out of a veteran defense that returns 9 starters. And a Bud Foster defense so uncharacteristic. I think this has been the biggest surprise, the biggest disappointment, and the #1 issue for Virginia Tech
So
this
the
year.
question is, heading into the offseason, whether they make it to a bowl game or not, does Frank Beamer push the panic button a little bit, and does he make some changes?
Well, I just talked about the defense, but I would not be surprised personally if there was a change on the offensive side of the ball in some of the coaches, like quarterback coach Mike O'Kane or offensive coordinator Brian Steinspring. But here's why. When you have a really good defense and you have an average offense, it gets hidden. When you win games, they won 10 games all those years in a row with a pretty average offense, to be honest. When I played Virginia Tech, they had a very, very pedestrian offense, but their defense was so daggum good it got hidden. But when you have an average defense like they have this year, it gets exposed. And I don't think you can be that one-dimensional going forward. And I think it needs to change the offensive side of the ball. So if they do have struggles, then they can make up for it on the offensive side. Because right now, it ain't getting done.
I don't think they're going to make any changes. I think Frank Beamer and his staff, they've been so good for so long together. I think they've built up some good credit. So I think if things falter next year, maybe they make some changes. But, so many 10-win seasons, so many consecutive bowl games, I think it's too early to start talking changes.
Okay, so again, Virginia Tech needs wins over Virginia next week and Boston College today to become bowl eligible. Speaking of BC, last week when I was talking to Mark Herzlich, Riley, you mentioned that Herzlich, right, was responsible for the only pick 6 you ever threw at Wake Forest.
Do we have to bring this up twice?
It's too tempting. It's too tempting.
Oh,
we found
my God. We found it in the archives. Gosh.
You threw it right
I dream
to
about
him.
that sometime. Nightmares I see. I mean, to see a guy this big, full extension.
Wide open.
That was athletic play. My running back was open. Mark Herzlich wasn't there, and that's
great attempt.
That's a lonely feeling.
I guess
you're laying on your back.
The question I have is, did you not see him standing there? That's the question I have.
I tried a little sidearm. I thought the sidearm would get by, but absolutely not. Mark Herzlich, and they didn't show his second interception. I'll throw myself under the bus. He had a second interception that game. That pains me to watch.
I tell you what.
Thanks for bringing that up, guys.
Looking at that play right there, your accuracy, incredible. Incredible. You hit him right between the numbers. That was a great pass.
Boston College and Virginia Tech kickoff at 12:30. You know the Hokies actually still have a chance to win the Coastal Division. Here are the standings. Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Miami, all 4-3. We know North Carolina isn't eligible to play in Charlotte. Miami may decide to be ineligible too. Duke is 3-3. And then the Hokies at 2-4. So many scenarios. If only someone could explain all of them.
For Miami, the recipe is simple. Beat Duke next weekend in Durham, and the championship game appearance is theirs. But this scenario comes with a caveat. For several weeks, there have been rumblings that Miami could be considering a self-imposed postseason ban, a move that could potentially ease the extent to which the Canes are penalized by the NCAA in the wake of the Nevin Shapiro scandal. Needless to say, the Canes' uncertain future makes the race considerably more complex. The team least concerned with Miami's decision is David Cutcliffe's Duke Blue Devils, who, just like Miami, control their own destiny. Wins against Georgia Tech today and Miami next week would give Duke the Coastal title. But it's not their only path. If the Blue Devils win today against Georgia Tech and then lose to Miami 7 days from now, Duke would still represent the Coastal should Miami self-impose, and Virginia Tech lose one of its 2 remaining games against Boston College and Virginia. Georgia Tech will be following the fate of the Blue Devils closely. In order to win the Coastal, the Yellow Jackets need to beat Duke today, and for Duke to beat Miami next week. That is unless Miami self-imposes. Should the Canes remove themselves from the picture, all Georgia Tech needs is a win today against Duke. The slimmest chances belong to Frank Beamer's Virginia Tech squad, who sport a 2-4 ACC record. The Hokies are eliminated should Miami decide against any self-sanctioning. But should the Canes self-impose, the Hokies can get to Charlotte with wins in each of their final 2 games, a Duke win today over Georgia Tech, and a Miami victory next week against Duke.
Brilliant breakdown. Thank you. I realize I'm asking. I realize I'm asking a Georgia Tech alum, Dorsey, but who's your pick right now to win the Coastal?
Oh, I'm back on the Georgia Tech bandwagon. It's Georgia Tech, hands down, no question. No, but I think they will beat Duke today. I think they will beat Duke, but my gut feeling says that Miami will self-impose, and they won't be in the postseason. So my pick is with Georgia Tech.
Well, bowl bans and all that aside, I'm saying Miami, and here's why. I think they're going to beat Duke because I think their speed against a Duke struggling defense is the biggest factor. Also, I think Duke is looking way too close to Georgia Tech right now that they're going to have a short week to get ready for Miami. Miami's playing a non-conference team. They can get ready for Duke this whole previous 2 weeks. So I'm going Miami.
Fans, what do you think of the Coastal? Let's bring in Kelly Nash. We want to know what they're saying on Twitter, Kelly. Even better, we're getting fan videos.
That's right. Those Miami fans, they're a vocal bunch, and they've told us all week they either do or don't want to go to a bowl if they become bowl eligible. Now, one fan took this side. The Hurricanes should self-impose a bowl ban simply because they don't deserve to be in a bowl. This team is not good. No way around it. But on the other side, meet Kyler Luongo. Check out this video he sent in.
The U is definitely going to win the Coastal. North Carolina, not bowl eligible. Doesn't matter. Duke plays Georgia Tech. Doesn't matter what they do because all we have to do is beat Duke that following weekend. And we got it. We're not going to self-impose a bowl ban. Why punish people for what everybody else did? Nobody is left. It's all about the U. Going to Charlotte.
I like that.
He's pretty clearly a Miami fan. Do you see that wall?
That wall. Wow. I agree with him.
Kelly, thank you for that. The Canes, Yellow Jackets, Tar Heels all tied for first right now. UNC joined the leaders with a win over Virginia Thursday night. We'll break down that game coming up.
A sprint to the finish line for Tajh Boyd.
The election's over, but we need campaign volunteers to put up Tajh For Heisman signs on front lawns. He's trying to help the ACC get 2 teams into the BCS. Would that make you feel better about the system, or is it just a total mess? And we get ACC Interactive. More of your home videos, more of your comments on the ACC in the BCS.
You can't keep greatness in a box, so we won't. The ACC mobile app presented by Carrabba's. Imagine seeing this on this. That's greatness. For the ACC schools you live for, it's the app you can't live without. Available on your iPhone, iPad, Android, and Nokia Lumia Windows Phone. The ACC mobile app, live games, videos, scores, stats, news, and greatness. Visit theacc.com/apps.
I'm Jeff Fischel with another ACC Now and Then, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Miami's Duke Johnson had over 300 all-purpose yards versus Virginia, including a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown and 150 yards on the ground, putting him on pace to break the Hurricanes' freshman rushing record held by one of the all-time greats at Miami, Clinton Portis, who racked up 838 yards in 1999. Brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Enjoy our new mixed grill special starting at $11.99.
At the Jeep Summer Clearance event, you can make this summer your time. Time to find your power and lose your doubts. Time to steer clear of the ordinary and make room for the extraordinary. Just like the deals you'll find at the Jeep Summer Clearance event.
The ACC Digital Network, the ultimate video destination for ACC fans. Exclusive highlights, live streaming games, and original live programming, unique access to the student athletes of our time and the legendary voices of all time. Defining moments, personal stories, incredible analysis from authentic ACC sources, cutting-edge content from the leaders in the digital space. The ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.
Experience unique culinary pairings with Ruby Tuesday's new mixed grill specials starting at $11.99, including our baby back ribs and bacon wrapped shrimp. And of course, enjoy our free garden bar with any mixed grill special or chef-inspired entree. Ruby Tuesday, it's all good here.
For more great information on the 12th weekend of Atlantic Coast Conference football, tune in to the ACC Blitz, powered by Ram. Host Tom Wormy and Coach Tommy Bowden will break down a great slate of ACC games and those many scenarios of the Coastal Division race. So tune in at noon to the ACC Blitz powered by Ram. Check local listings for the station in your area. This week, Clemson coach Dabo Swinney and his quarterback Tajh Boyd were asked the one thing they probably really don't want to talk about, the possibility that Tajh goes pro early. Dabo says there's a time and place to talk about it. Now is not the time. Tajh says he's thought about it, but he couldn't be happier than he is at Clemson. It's understandable that the questions are coming up week after week. Boyd is unstoppable.
Pump fakes. Now he's going to fire downfield. Watkins open at the 10, at the 5, and there's Orange in the end zone. Touchdown!
There's nobody on our team that wants to do better than Tajh. He's always trying to get better. He's always doing the workouts plus some. He's in there before we get there, after we leave. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better guy.
This is special. A lot of people don't get this chance, and to be in a place like this and actually be able to, take this thing over is amazing, man. So, I mean, I got the opportunity now, and I'm not gonna let go. Just got to run with it. Got to make the family proud. That's what it is. One big family here. Growing up, you have dreams and visions of being that guy that's like lights on. Now you got to show up, and having the opportunity, you don't want to let down. So, but now it's my turn to step up and take control and actually be that leader. And that's what I have to become in order for us to be successful.
All right, so we figured we'd get away from the desk for just a minute just to prove these guys aren't wearing shorts and flip-flops when we're doing the show. The question is Tajh Boyd a legitimate Heisman contender? Should he be invited to New York? The college football world has a man crush right now on Kansas State quarterback Colin Klein, so we figured we would compare these two guys. Riley, first, let's talk about passing game. Who's the more productive passer?
Jeff, I think without a doubt it's Tajh Boyd. I mean, I think Colin Klein's a good passer, but he's not a great passer. Tajh Boyd is a great passer. What he does, throwing the football 10, 20 yards down the field, he puts it on the face mask of Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins. He hits them in stride. And we can talk stats. We can talk 2,900 yards, 28 touchdowns. But it's the way that he orchestrates the offense, his confident decision-making. I haven't seen anybody in the ACC, better yet the country, maybe Mariota at Oregon, throw the ball the way that Tajh Boyd is this year.
All right, but Dorsey, who's the more productive runner?
I would say Colin Klein is the more productive running by. I agree with you with Tajh Boyd. I think he's probably, of all the Heisman candidates who are quarterbacks, he's probably the best passer in with that group of guys. But running the ball, I think the numbers don't lie. Colin Klein has 750 yards rushing, 19 touchdowns rushing the football. Tajh has only had 363 yards and 5 touchdowns. So while Tajh is definitely the better passer, I have to give it to Colin Klein when it comes to running the football.
I will say, though, Tajh Boyd throws the ball very well on the run. He uses his feet. He doesn't have the numbers like Colin Klein has running the football, but the way he throws it on the run is pretty impressive what he can do with his feet, and losing weight this offseason to definitely help that.
And there's really no need for him to run the ball a
Yeah,
lot anyway.
exactly.
Because you have so many weapons around
No
you.
kidding.
It's probably best that he hand the ball off or pass it to guys.
So, guys, who's more accurate, though, with his arm? Riley?
Well, like I was talking about, I'm going to still stay with Tajh Boyd. And he's 68% accuracy. Like you said, the numbers don't lie in the throwing game. But what impresses me the most, and as a quarterback, you see this, you get kind of giddy, what he does throwing the football 10, 20, 30 yards down the field, the trajectory that he throws the ball and where he hits his targets, it's impressive. They're all NFL-type throws that they ask Tajh to make, and he can throw every single one of them. And he's got some good guys to catch them, too.
All right, guys, sometimes this can be hard to measure. Who has better leadership, Dorsey? What do you think?
I'm going to go with Tajh Boyd in the leadership category. Last year, he took Clemson to the ACC title game for the first time in over 20 years. This year, he's leading his guys to a 9-1 record, and most importantly, they haven't had that late season meltdown that we've seen with Clemson, and I think that starts first with the head coach, then with the quarterback, and he has to get the guys around him to believe, and I think that's what he's done a great job of leading that team to a 9-1 record so
and
far.
I also think what he's done after the Florida State loss, the way they came back and played dominantly, had some huge wins after that loss, and many could have said this is the same Clemson team. After a big loss like Florida State, they're going to melt down, and they haven't, and I do attribute that to Tajh Boyd. It's hard to say Colin Klein's not a good leader because they haven't lost.
No, we're splitting hairs here with two great players.
Exactly, but I think I'll go with Tajh Boyd, too, on that.
All right, let's go to the tail of tape between these two guys. Boyd leads overall in touchdowns, 33-31. He had 38 TDs last year, so he's actually on pace to beat that. He has many more passing yards, but Klein has twice as many rushing yards. Boyd, number 2 in the country in passing efficiency. Klein isn't far behind. They're both in the top 5 in yards per attempt. All right, Dorsey, these guys are very different quarterbacks, as we've talked about, both putting up amazing numbers. Why is Klein a favorite right now? Well, people aren't even really talking about Tajh Boyd.
It's really simple because he's the number one. He's on the number 1 team in the country, and he's a quarterback. It's plain and simple. I think at this day and age, the Heisman has become a popularity contest, which means your team has to be one of the top 5 teams. If you look at all the candidates right now in the Heisman race, the top 5 guys, their teams are in the top 5 in the BCS. I think the only reason Tajh is not in that category is because Clemson is not ranked in the top 5. And Tajh doesn't have that big signature game where he comes out, the nation is watching, and he lights up the scoreboard. We haven't seen that yet. He's had some really good games against lesser opponents, but in the big marquee games where most of the guys that we're talking about who are leading the Heisman race, they've had big games in those situations.
But let me play devil's advocate here, because you look at when Tim Tebow won the Heisman, they were 8-4. I mean, he wasn't on the best team in the country. Granted, Florida is going to get that national recognition no matter what. I mean, look at RG3, they went 10-3 last year, and it became all about the statistics. And we can get into the BCS conversation later on why Clemson's not higher ranked. I think if, like Dorsey said, though, if they were 7, 6, 5 rank. I think Tajh Boyd's more in this conversation. I personally think he should be up there with the rest of the candidates.
You bring that up. I was trading tweets actually with Travis Sawchek, who does a great job covering Clemson for the Charleston Post and Courier. I asked him about Tajh's Heisman chances. You can see what he tweeted me. Clemson's strength of schedule is pulling his candidacy down. He'll have a chance to raise awareness versus South Carolina next week.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, him and E.J. Manuel, I think Tajh is, obviously a bigger candidate than E.J. Manuel, but I think Week 12 is going to be a huge storybook, game for both Florida State and Clemson when they face those SEC teams, and they can kind of put that BCS conversation to rest. Hopefully.
Yeah, we talked about guys having that marquee game, that big signature game. For Clemson, that game is going to be against South Carolina next week, and for Florida State, like you said, and E.J. Manuel, that big game is going to be against Florida in the last week of the regular season. Those are those guys' only 2 opportunities to show the world that they're legitimate Heisman candidates.
So step up, guys, please, for the ACC. Step up, have your games.
Maryland's never shy defensive lineman A.J. Francis is actually tweeting about some of the best quarterbacks he's faced. And look who he mentions here. Russell Wilson, Tyrod Thomas, Tajh, Riley Skinner. E.J. Manuel, Christian Ponder. He was being asked who's the best quarterback he's faced in college.
That might have been our editor back there just sneaking me in, giving me a little credit. But thanks, AJ.
Riley, did you pay him? That's against NCAA rules.
That is off air. We can talk about that off air.
Remember, you can tweet us as well at the ACCDN. Now, we're talking about Tajh Boyd. Dorsey, you like Gio Bernard as your ACC Player of the Year. You still sticking with Gio?
I am. He didn't have a big game Thursday night against Virginia, but he's still a guy, in my opinion. I mean, he can do it in so many different ways, running the football, catching the football, returning kicks. He's my guy.
You talked about that
game. Running back.
You talked about that game Thursday night, North Carolina and Virginia. Let's head out to this one. Virginia needed a win and a win next week to get them 6-6 and be bowl eligible. UNC looked sharp early, already leading 7-3. Bryn Renner to Quinshad Davis. 16 catches in this game. The freshman ties a North Carolina and ACC record for most catches in a single game. That leads to a score. North Carolina putting up points. Of course, the big issue all season long, Riley, has been the quarterback play. Phillip Sims, Michael Rocco, who's the man? We didn't really get an answer, did we?
No, we didn't. And here you see a great play by Phillip Sims, having to create something on 3rd and goal. They need to get something going, and it's usually dicey to throw across your body, but he made a great play. But again, Michael Rocco, came in, and this is what happens when you have to switch quarterbacks. You don't get into a rhythm, and here you see this pick 6 really change the momentum of the game, got Carolina a cushion, and like you said, that's what happens when you have this quarterback controversy and you're rotating through series after series. You never get in a rhythm.
Trey Boston with the touchdown there. 20-10 North Carolina at the break. Second half, Virginia 1 yard away from tying the game. 4th and goal. Look what happens to Kevin Parks. Stuffed, never gets anywhere. North Carolina takes over on downs. 97 yards now to drive down the field. That's exactly what Bryn Renner does. Time running down in the 3rd quarter, then into the 4th quarter, same drive. And look who comes out of the backfield, Dorsey.
It's amazing that guy can be that wide open considering what he's done this season. But hats off to Virginia and Mike London because they keyed on Gio this whole game and kind of shut him down. Considering what he's been doing all season, and at the end of the game, I think they kind of gave up, and that's why he's open.
So Virginia now cannot go to a bowl game. Meanwhile, North Carolina tied atop the ACC Coastal Division standings. Ahead on ACC Kickoff Live, the Canes are still hoping to wrap up the Coastal, but before they can do that, a little test versus a familiar South Florida foe. Meanwhile, the Seminoles need one more win to wrap things up in the Atlantic. But E.J. Manuel and Florida State must first face a testy Terps defense. We preview Florida State versus Maryland next.
What do you call a machine that combines precision-engineered handling, industry-leading power, and a rider-focused design? We call it a Can-Am. From the essentials to fully loaded, you'll find that same combination in every ATV and side-by-side we build. And right now, get your own for as low as $149 a month. Can-Am, the ride says it all.
At the Jeep Summer Clearance event, you can make this summer your time. Time to find your power and lose your doubts. Time to steer clear of the ordinary and make room for the extraordinary. Just like the deals you'll find at the Jeep Summer Clearance event.
You can't keep greatness in a box, so we won't. The ACC mobile app presented by Carrabba's. Imagine seeing this on this. That's greatness. For the ACC schools you live for, it's the app you can't live without. Available on your iPhone, iPad, Android, and Nokia Lumia Windows Phone. The ACC mobile app, live games, videos, scores, stats, news, and greatness. Visit theacc.com/apps.
Ever wonder where unforgettable experiences meet unique culinary pairings? At Ruby Tuesday with our new mixed grill specials starting at $11.99. Including our new South Tropic Trio with a black fire sirloin, grilled chicken topped with fresh mango salsa, and jumbo coconut crusted shrimp, or savory ribs and bacon wrapped shrimp. And our fresh garden bar comes free with any of our mixed grill specials. Ruby Tuesday, it's all good here. Plus, this season, buy $50 in Ruby Tuesday gift cards and get a $15 bonus card absolutely free.
Why not try someplace different every morning? Get 2 times the points on dining in restaurants with J Sapphire Preferred.
Virginia Tech so close to upsetting Florida State last week. The Hokies cannot afford to let that disappointment throw them off today at Boston College. Kickoff less than an hour on the ACC network. We're also expecting another big day from Miami's super freshman Duke Johnson.
Here in Miami, it's the Duke Johnson Show. What a move! Are you kidding me?
Duke-O-mania continue!
He is amazing. We are watching somebody who could be a legend at Miami when it's all said and done.
Here he goes! Duke Johnson to the sideline! Duke Johnson's gonna go! The freshman is something special.
He's fantastic. Duke Johnson. I'm Jeff Fischel with Riley Skinner and Dorsey Levens here at ACC Kickoff Live. Kelly Nash will join us shortly. The Canes coming off a very disappointing loss to Virginia last week. All the problems they've had on defense exposed by the Cavs, a team that's really struggled this season. Riley, what do you need to see this afternoon against South Florida?
Well, you were talking about their defense. That's exactly what I want to see. I think the offense has found its rhythm, but the defense, it's a defense that's 90th in the country right now. I mean, they're giving up almost 31 points a game, and luckily for them, they're playing a struggling South Florida team, 3-6. I think before they head into this Duke game, they need to fine-tune this defense, get some fire in them, stop some people. You don't have to gang tackle everybody. Have one person tackle one other person. They haven't been doing that all year. They've got to get something going on the defense.
And we've talked about next week they could be playing for the division title or not if the school officials decide to self-impose a bowl ban. Dorsey, I know this has been frustrating you that there's no decision.
Yeah, and it is frustrating because what's the holdup? You know, I think I know what the holdup is. You guys are 5-5. You need one more win to become bowl eligible, and if you don't get that win, then there's nothing to decide. You know, so you're gonna let it play out. But the Yellow Jacket fans would like to get our reservations for Charlotte in order as soon as possible. So the sooner y'all tell us, it can make our lives a lot more easier. Thank you.
It's all about me.
Yeah.
Or you.
And for Miami's defense, it's very simple. Dan Cilio needs to give the pregame speech. It's real simple.
I feel bad for the seniors for Miami that they're not knowing. They had the same thing happen to them last year, and then they're again in limbo. Don't know if as a senior, it's a big deal as a senior to go to a bowl game.
Sure.
And they need to know. They need to make it.
If Miami remains eligible and wins next week, it would be the Canes' first time in the ACC title game. Imagine Miami versus Florida State for the ACC title. The Noles, of course, must beat Maryland today first. With all of the injuries on Randy Edsall's team, it's hard to imagine an upset rally, but it also makes it hard to imagine Florida State impressing BCS voters and poll voters with a game like this.
Well, we talked about this, and it's tough for Florida State right now when you're trying to make a case for yourself in the BCS and you're playing a Maryland team that is just in disarray. I mean, they're playing a linebacker at quarterback.
Yeah, it's no one's fault. It's just injuries.
It's no one's fault, and that's what kind of gets to me is that it's out of Florida State's control. It's out of Maryland's control. Florida State is doing what they should do, and they're beating teams, and they're beating teams by a lot. Yeah. They have one loss, but Florida State, they just need to come out and have a dominating performance, do what you do, but keep your players healthy in the second half because Week 12 is going to be the big. It's not this game that's going to be the BCS decider. It's going to be Florida. So I would keep your players healthy in the second half, but dominate the heck out of Maryland in the first half if you can.
As we said earlier, Jimbo Fisher, Florida State head coach, fuming this week. The Noles are 6th in the Harris and USA Today polls, but 10th in the BCS. Fisher didn't hold back. He hates the BCS right now.
I think it was better in the old days when you did it by the eye test and did it, and everybody didn't even have a championship game. You went to your bowl game, figured out he's the best guy. I mean, when you really get down to it, the way it's going now, it makes no sense to me.
It's time now for our Ruby Tuesday Fresh Perspective. I want to ask each of you this. If you were the ruler of college football, and a benevolent ruler, of course, what would you do to set up college football for determining a national title? What would be your way to create a system? Dorsey, go ahead.
I'll hear you first.
For me, it's simple. I would do a 16-team playoff, not a 4-team playoff, because I think out of 16 teams, you can't get it wrong. The best team in the country has to be within that top 16. I'm tired of computers. Computers don't have a clue. The eye test is what's most important. The coaches, like you said, they've been playing or watching football their entire lives. They know what's a good football team versus a bad football team. I think if we go to 16 teams, we get the answers. And I know people say, well, maybe it'll diminish the regular season. Well, look at college basketball. We can't wait for the Final Four series to start. I don't think it's going to affect it at all. I think a playoff gives you a champion, and there's no question about it.
But I think you go to an 8 team. I think 16. When you get into 12 through 16, I think you're allowing some teams that probably don't deserve to be in the national title hunt to get a shot. And I think if you go to 8, it still makes the regular season just that much important, but also it gets teams that may be deserving of a national title in the hunt. I think 16 is too much. I mean, you look at the NFL, you look at the Giants. The last couple of years, I mean, it doesn't matter what the Giants are doing in the preseason. They got all these teams that can get into the playoffs. They sneak into the playoffs, and then they get a Super Bowl ring. And so, really, the regular season really doesn't have much weight.
But isn't that what makes college basketball so great? In the field
We're
of 64,
football,
in the field of 64, anybody can win. That's what makes it must-see TV. You want to tune in to see
teams that don't deserve to be the national championship.
We have that now.
To be it.
We have that now. We don't have a definitive answer at the end of the season as to who is the best football team in college football.
I will say, I think the BCS has got it right the last couple of years because I think it's played itself out. I think it's, the arguments leading up to Week 12 are very viable, but I think at the end, when it's all said and done, when all the cards are shown, I think the 2 best teams have played in the national championship. But right now, there can be 3 undefeated teams, and I don't think.
Well, let's look at it this way. You got the whole month of December where there's nothing to do in college football unless you want to watch the toilet bowl. There are a bunch of those on TV. If you want to watch all the 6-6 teams in December, you can do that.
I love the bowl
But
game.
as opposed, you have 16 teams. Now you have 4 weekends in December with the national championship happening the first week in January, if not on New Year's Day. Perfect system, Riley.
But but again, when you get to 13, 14 ranked teams, they're going to have 3 or 4 losses. You think a 3 or 4 loss team deserves to be in the national title hunt? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
That gives Wake Forest a chance.
Wake's past the 16.
But what I hear you guys both saying, though, is you want to see 8, you want to see 16. So neither of you are even happy with now the 4-team playoff that's coming in a couple of years. That's not enough.
I agree with Jimbo that what's it really going to solve? I think you've got to expand a little more.
Yeah. On Twitter, I asked Corey Clark, who covers the Noles for the Tallahassee Democrat, about Jimbo's gripe with the BCS, and he agrees that the Noles should be getting more respect. Quote, he told me they should be ahead of every 2-loss team, so should Clemson. So instead of 10th and 11th, he sees them perhaps at 7 and 8. Does that sound right to you guys right now?
That sounds right to me.
Okay.
Because like we talked about earlier, they're controlling what they can control. And it's not their fault the rest of the ACC isn't holding their weight. Okay. And teams that aren't as good in the SEC that are getting credit because other teams in the SEC are good, I just don't think that's right.
All right, let's bring in Kelly Nash again. Kelly, fans are letting us know how they feel about the BCS and where Florida State and Clemson fit in. What are they saying?
Well, Riley and Dorsey seem to think the Clemson players are keeping their focus on today's game against NC State. But the fans, they like to look ahead, and Clemson fans are holding out hope for an at-large BCS bid. Now the Seminoles, they're less than impressed with the BCS standings, especially the fact that the SEC has 6 teams ahead of them right now in the standings. Check out this fan video.
No, I don't agree with FSU being ranked behind 6 SEC teams, mostly because of the perceived strength of schedule the SEC creates during the preseason rankings. Most teams in the SEC are ranked in the top 25, which allows them to be perceived as powerful when they play other teams in their conference. And they don't move down very much because they're playing another ranked team.
All right, Kelly, that's great stuff. And remember, just like those videos we've seen today, tweet us your opinion. You can send in a video, too, showing us how you feel. Our Twitter feed is @theACCDN. Coming up, it's time to ask the never-ending question. Is Riley seriously flipping a coin to pick these ACC matchups? Riley and Dorsey make their Saturday selections next.
What do you call a machine that combines precision-engineered handling, industry-leading power, and a rider-focused design. We call it a Can-Am. From the essentials to fully loaded, you'll find that same combination in every ATV and side-by-side we build. And right now, get your own for as low as $149 a month. Can-Am, the ride says it all.
I'm Jeff Fischel with another ACC Now and Then, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Miami's Duke Johnson had over 300 all-purpose yards versus Virginia, including a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown and 150 yards on the ground, putting him on pace to break the Hurricanes' freshman rushing record held by one of the all-time greats at Miami, Clinton Portis, who racked up 838 yards in 1999.
Brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Enjoy our new mixed grill special starting at $11.99.
At the Jeep Summer Clearance event, you can make this summer your time. Time to find your power and lose your doubts. Time to steer clear of the ordinary and make room for the extraordinary. Just like the deals you'll find at the Jeep Summer Clearance event.
You can't keep greatness in a box, so we won't. The ACC mobile app presented by Carrabba's. Imagine seeing this on this. That's greatness. For the ACC schools you live for, it's the app you can't live without. Available on your iPhone, iPad, Android, and Nokia Lumia Windows Phone. The ACC mobile app, live games, video, scores, stats, news, and greatness. Visit theacc.com/apps.
Why not try someplace different every morning? Get 2 times the points on dining in restaurants with J Sapphire Preferred.
Run him until he scores, no doubt. Here he goes. Touchdown, Logan Thomas.
Boyd going deep. He's got Hopkins. Another touchdown for Clemson. Hopkins moves to the second place on Clemson's all-time list for career receiving yards.
Wow, he got depleted. Big hit. Xavier Rhodes. X marks the spot. Here he goes. Duke Johnson's gonna go. The freshman is something special.
Come with the running attack, and it's a great one. And BC could be in business.
Newman can't get him, and Smith is gonna go.
Fins past one, and look out.
Hello, Carolina. Strike the pose, Gio.
Even if they're playing number 31 at quarterback, they don't have their tailback, their receiver, their middle linebacker, they're still going to play hard.
Here's Campanero's going to throw it. Wide open is Davis. Touchdown, Wake Forest. Throwing deep. Got high is there. Makes the catch. Touchdown, Georgia Tech. To the end zone. Caught! Touchdown, Jake McGee. The kid does it again. Manuel underneath. Green, first down and more. Green on the run. Green may go to the house. Rashad Green, touchdown, Florida State.
What about that 2-minute drive, guys, by E.J. Manuel?
Fantastic. That's what you want from a senior quarterback.
That's great stuff from last week. We are running out of time for Riley to close the gap with his Saturday selections. 5 back of Dorsey right now. Fans, 27-12. Riley, you are barely above 500.
Thank you, Jeff.
Just to point that out. just to rub it in a little
Hey,
more.
I didn't say I'm above 500. Glass is half full, baby.
All right, so maybe you can pick up ground today. We'll see what you guys have. Florida State versus Maryland, Dorsey.
I'm going to go with Florida State. They're too talented, and Maryland's too beat up.
I'm going to go Florida State as well. It's a no-brainer.
It's hard to gain ground when you're going to agree with them. Virginia Tech, Boston College.
I'm going to go with Virginia Tech. Boston College is struggling. Virginia Tech, good game last week. I think they're going to build on it.
I agree, too. I'm going to go Florida. I'm walking a fine line of making the right pick or just trying to gain ground.
All right. NC State, Clemson, and Death Valley.
All right, I'm going to give you NC State. I'm going to take Clemson.
I decline. I respectfully decline.
You're both picking Clemson and
We're both going Clemson.
And then the big game with coastal implications, Duke, Georgia Tech, Dorsey.
Obviously, I got Georgia Tech. I got Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, they're on a hot streak right now. I've got to go with the Jackets.
All right, so you're not able to pick up any ground today, but at least you can get further above 500. Kelly, they agree on the games. What are the fans saying on Facebook? Because clearly you guys out there, you know your stuff better than Riley and Dorsey so far.
Well, 82% pick the Noles. No surprise there. 83% go Hokies. 64% went Clemson. They don't think the Pack can repeat from last year. But, guys, you're off on the Blue Devils. 58% went with Duke.
Wow.
Oh, good. Well, I get to make some progress against the fans this week. That's
picking
good.
in the ACC is so unpredictable, it's not even funny.
Kelly, thank you. Let's take one more look at the Saturday schedule. Next hour, the Noles can wrap up the Atlantic with a win. Virginia Tech fighting for bowl survival at 3. South Florida at Miami. Check your local listings for that one. Then 3 games at 3:30. The Pack and Clemson, Duke and Georgia Tech. Wake at Notre Dame. The Irish have 2 games left to state their case for a spot in the national championship game. All right, guys, I have to ask, either of you like the Demon Deacons?
They have a shot, but I don't think they're going to do it.
I like them against the spread. Does that count? Look, no qualms about it. Boston College made it a game last week. I think Deeks have a chance to upset them.
All right, there it is. Riley thinks it might happen. You're watching ACC Kickoff Live on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.